I used to think resentment meant the other person was a problem, that they were an inconsiderate dick or a selfish jerk. What I understand now is that resentment usually means I'm not speaking up. It means something isn't okay with me and I'm expecting the other person to magically know and change without me having to without me having to say anything. When that doesn't happen, I would resent them. Hi, I'm Barb Nangle. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. If you're tired of feeling fragmented and overwhelmed, this podcast is your guide to creating a life of wholeness, authenticity, and healthy boundaries. I'm a woman in recovery who is also a boundaries coach and speaker. I share raw and honest insights from my own journey and the principles of 12-step recovery. Discover how to set boundaries without guilt or shame, overcome people-pleasing tendencies, manage your emotions effectively, cultivate a stronger sense of self, and build healthier relationships. My approach is raw, honest, and sometimes a lot sweary. I'm an avid beachcomber and a formerly closeted fan of the Hallmark Channel, especially Christmas movies. I wear fingerless gloves almost all year round because my hands are always cold. And I love taking pictures of license plates with my initials BN on them. I don't speak for or endorse any particular 12-step program of recovery. Though I'm a huge fan of 12-step recovery and a member of two such fellowships, I cannot speak for them. If you're ready for real talk and practical tools for transformation, keep listening. This is episode 334, How to Change Your Love Life by Becoming Emotionally Available. For most of my adult life, I believed I had a pattern in relationships. I thought I attracted emotionally unavailable men. I saw that pattern very clearly. What I didn't understand until much later was that I was only seeing part of the picture. I was 52 when I entered 12-step recovery. I'd never been married. I'd been engaged once. I'd lived with several men. I'd had many relationships that were clearly defined as boyfriend and girlfriend. I'd also had some friends with benefits. And when I really looked at my history, I realized something surprising. I'd been telling myself a story about my relationships that simply wasn't true. That realization came through doing a relationship inventory in Step 4 of ACA. Step 4 in ACA is the same as in other programs in that we take a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Where it differs from other 12-step programs is that we get down to causes and conditions. That is, in ACA, we understand that we are products of our environment. In other 12-step programs, you're not allowed to look at your environment. You're only allowed to look at yourself. You can't look at other people, their role, the family system, your role within that, etc. But in ACA, we understand you're a product of your environment. So in Step 4 in ACA, there are 12 inventories. 3 of them about things that I did, and 9 of them are about things that happened to me. These help us understand what we did based on our conditioning, the causes and conditions. Before recovery, I believed emotionally unavailable men were the problem. I believed they were drawn to me and that somehow I was unlucky or cursed or just attracting the wrong people for some random reason. I also believed I was generous, loving, flexible, and long-suffering, and I just hadn't met the right person yet. I knew I stayed too long. I knew I tolerated things that weren't okay with me. I knew I found it almost impossible to leave relationships until they became completely intolerable, but I didn't understand why. Then I went to my first ACA meeting and heard a line from the laundry list, which is the 14 traits of an adult child. And this line landed like a punch to the chest. We'll do anything to hold on to a relationship. I knew immediately that was me. What I came to see in recovery is that this wasn't magic and it wasn't bad luck. It was conditioning. It was my nervous system doing exactly what it had been trained to do. Yes, I was attracted to emotionally unavailable men, But what I couldn't see was that they were a match for me because I was emotionally unavailable too. What I mean when I say I wasn't emotionally available is that I didn't know what I felt. I didn't allow myself to feel. I buried emotions. I numbed them. I used substances and behaviors to avoid them. I wasn't emotionally available to myself. So, of course, I couldn't be emotionally available to someone else. And what emotionally available person is going to stay in a relationship with someone who can't feel, speak, or tolerate emotional truths? That's when my victim story started to fall apart. I wasn't being targeted. I was participating. Not consciously, not maliciously, but deeply subconsciously and predictably. That's why it was a pattern. One of the biggest shifts for me came when I started to understand emotions as signals rather than verdicts. For example, resentment. I used to think resentment meant the other person was a problem, that they were an inconsiderate dick or a selfish jerk. What I understand now is that resentment usually means I'm not speaking up. It means something isn't okay with me and I'm expecting the other person to magically know and change without me having to without me having to say anything. When that doesn't happen, I would resent them. Learning to feel emotions, interpret them correctly, and then let them guide me changed everything. That's where boundaries entered the picture. Boundaries weren't about control. They were about clarity. They were about self-responsibility. They were about becoming emotionally available to myself first. As I mentioned above, in ACA, the fourth step includes multiple inventories, most of them focused on what happened to us, a smaller number on what we did. The goal isn't blame. It's understanding causes and conditions. One of the inventories I found most powerful was the relationship inventory. I'm not going to share the details from mine, but I do want to share the categories because this is something you can do on your own and it can be incredibly illuminating. I've also put the categories in the show notes in case you want to use them yourself and you don't have to write them down while listening. The first is who the person was, then what you expected from them or from the relationship, what you actually got, what your dependent behavior was, and how the relationship ended. So those were in the inventory. And then I personally decided I wanted to track some additional variables. Which one of these people was I truly in love with? Which relationships were clearly defined on both sides? Like, he knows I'm his girlfriend and I know he's my boyfriend. Where substance use played a major role, where infidelity was present, and who ended the relationship. What I saw over time was unmistakable. My codependence didn't improve with age, it got worse. I lost myself more and more. And very early on, I received a message that landed deep in my nervous system, that I couldn't be loved if I was fully myself. Seeing these patterns on paper changed me. I'm in a healthy romantic relationship today because I no longer expect my partner to be the be-all and end-all of my existence. We have separate lives, separate interests, and shared ones too. That's healthy. That's interdependence. His problems are his, mine are mine. We support each other without fixing or rescuing. When something bothers me, I say it. When something bothers him, he says it. We don't mind read and we don't keep score. And I don't take things personally the way I once did, not just in relationships, but everywhere. Now, here's my takeaway for you. If you want emotionally healthy relationships, the work starts with emotional availability to yourself, not perfection, not fixing your partner, not choosing better people, feeling your feelings, listening to them, speaking your truth, setting boundaries when something isn't okay. That's where everything changes. If you've ever learned what to say when setting a boundary, but still found yourself caving 5 minutes later, there's a reason for that. Boundaries don't fail because you said it wrong. They fail because your nervous system doesn't feel safe yet. Most people try to set boundaries from guilt, fear, or over responsibility. Then they wonder why their boundaries collapse the moment someone pushes back. What I teach is how to build internal safety first, so your no doesn't require justification, explaining, or rehearsing speeches in your head at 2 in the morning. That's recovery informed. That's how boundaries actually stick. If you're tired of saying yes when you mean no and then beating yourself up for it, I offer a free 30-minute Say No Without Guilt call. No fixing, no pressure, just clarity about what's getting in your way and what could actually help. You can book it through barbchat.net. That's barbchat.net.